Sounds like you brought a little something up.
Your mom.
Your mama.
Your mama.
Shoot your mama.
All right, take this gun out. Fuck.
Spit it in my mouth, Daddy.
Oh my god. I think that was live. Now they know what we're up to.
Shit.
Whoa. Welcome, everybody. I have gum with the G in my mouth. Put that on the table in the meantime.
Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? It is me, the semi-flip Lord PRXO, out here on the flip ship with the one and only Spot. Wait, you retired that.
Yeah.
Richard Grandin.
Who I will probably remain for life. I can't retire that one. That's my actual name.
You can do name changes, man.
I could
That's
do.
possible.
One of my friends from school became Megatron.
Megatron.
He was James, and now his name is Megatron.
I mean, if you're going to change your name to something, it might as well be something like that, no?
Yep. And so he doesn't insist on being called Megatron, but he does like to be called Megs or Meggy.
You know, do you think people's names end up determining their personalities? Because you know how some people just like look like a Ben, and some people just look like a Robert.
I think that Richard, which is a king's name, it means hard ruler. Reichhart is the Germanic root. Richards tend to be a bit arrogant and kingy, and I think I'm a bit of a Richard.
Are you arrogant and kinky or
Yeah.
kinky?
I'm a kinky king.
I'm a Pierre, so I'm flamboyant.
Yeah, you are a bit of a Pierre.
Dude,
It's like Slinky.
You know, what's really interesting is like, I'm kind of almost ashamed of the fact that I just completely live up to the stereotype of what Pierre would be. Is like, Pierre, artist, musician, moved to Europe, enjoys aesthetics, walking around.
Crawls up the bed with a rose in his mouth. Ma chérie,
Pierre,
c'est le temps de faisons l'amour.
L'amour, les pierres, croissant.
Put down your baguette, I will make love to you.
What is up with that though? Like, do you think, like, if, just because you're named a certain thing, you're just like kind of destined to follow a certain fucking path?
I'm sure there's like something in psychology where they have a name for it. Like if you're called Mr. Baker, you become a baker. If you're called Mr. Judge, you become a judge. I knew a guy who was trying to join the army the same time as me, the parachute regiment. And God, what was his name? There was a sergeant. There was a guy called Mr. Sergeant there. He was trying to join with me. And there's some other guy with a preposterous name like Soldier Face or something like just really absurd. But yeah, there is a genuine psychological effect out there where if you're named something, there can be a tendency to become that thing.
But is it because just of the sound, or like is there a certain energy that just comes with it, man? Some new agey nonsense.
I think, I don't know. I really don't know. The thing with Richards is I've really noticed like there is a bit of arrogance with Richards tend to be nice, but a little bit arrogant.
Yeah, and for example, one common one is like for really loving, enduring, compassionate individuals known as Karen. Like really pleasant to be around, you know, thoroughly wholesome, and they're usually named Karen. I can't think of another name at the moment.
There was a girl when I used to work nightclub security. She was a restaurant manager, and she was called Karen. And God, I had the biggest crush on her for years and years and years. Lovely, lovely Karen. There are nice Karens out there, but yes, being a Karen is not such a good thing. Caroni.
Dude, it's so weird at the age of a pandemic. The Karen thing is also the... If you probably looked at like Google search terms, they probably rank right next to each other.
Yeah.
You know?
Plague and Karens.
Yeah, it's strange how these two came up at the same time, man.
The plague of my life is the Karen.
Yes. So, guys, if you don't know, out here in the lockdown situation, it's basically another lockdown. They're not naming it that, but I was like, we just got done filming for fucking like 4 hours. We have a lot of content for you guys. I hope you enjoy it. But afterwards, I was like, oh, you guys, I mean, Richard, do you want to go get something to eat? I was like, oh, wait a minute. We are in a situation that most of the other world is at right now, which is we can't go to restaurants, man. Is everybody's situation similar? Are you guys still under lockdown, and how are you dealing with it? It seems like you're doing fine.
Who?
You.
Oh, me personally, yes. I'm having a whale of a time at the moment.
What is it that you enjoy in the meantime?
You know, companionship and intimacy. I think it is a great thing. Human contact is a wonderful thing. No dance classes, no gym, which is a bummer. At the moment, if you want to go out for a drink, you have to wrap it up by 8 o'clock right now.
For dancing or
for going for a drink.
I thought all restaurants and pubs are closed though. No.
Okay, so there's no going for drinks at all, even till 8 o'clock.
Yeah, so everything's shut, and also if there is a place that serves alcohol, you can't drink it outside, which is weird because you would
interesting.
think that that would be the place that you could do it, is drink it
Right.
outside, not inside.
Yes, I suppose they're trying to preempt the congregation and of what would you call that? Like a little impromptu street party and that kind
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah, they won't be able to police that. Yeah, strange times. Strange times.
Really weird. So in the meantime, where do you think this is going to end up? You got any plans, man?
Well, I'm moving to Prague for a year. I'm going to get myself into a nice little rental contract here, and I'll be here for a year. And whatever happens, I will, survive this period from this location.
And you're going to lose your mind being around me for a year, dude.
Yes. Tattoos, bandanas, and box braids are in my future. He's already got me vaping. The wheel is next.
Right, everyone's going to blame me. That was with good intentions, man.
Yes, it was very healthy for me. Thank
Because
you.
he was smoking actual cigarettes.
I was a naughty boy. I decided to get back into smoking cigarettes in the time of a mass plague that mainly affects your lungs.
Yeah. So in the meantime, since we've pretty much recorded for 4 hours straight, I think it would be appropriate for anybody in the chat to possibly ask a few questions. If you have any topics that you guys want us to fondle
Yes.
softly
Oof.
or hardly, let us know.
Yeah, we are a bit zoned out. But we did. It was 4 hours shoot.
It
Wasn't
was 4 hours, and then we try to instill a hookah. Shout out to Mr. Hookah, and then we realized that we're completely inexperienced with it. We started zoning out after the first shot. We took like 3 hits of the hookah. We couldn't even remember a sentence.
Yeah, we were smoking a hookah and doing the tentacle croissant thing, and we had to stop because we just couldn't. Neither of us could focus from the intense high of the hookah, which I didn't even know you could get.
Bless you, my friend.
Excuse me.
Feels good, huh?
My flesh vehicle has responded.
So far, the only somewhat question brings up Porten Jeterson. Yeah, I know you're not a big fan of him.
It's a tricky one. My relationship with Porten Jeterson is complex and nuanced. I want him there. I want him to exist. I want him healthy. I want him doing his lectures. I've learned a tremendous amount from him, but I would also like there to be a space in which he can be criticised for making claims that are somewhat outlandish.
What I like about him is he seems like the entryway to the everyman's philosopher, and I respect that because he's able to translate Jungian, really general Jungian topics plus discipline into a very, very digestible manner, and he's very well spoken. On top of that, I think that's his value. And really basic shit like clean up your room and whatever. Like I was really into him for a while, and that's what actually got me to get my act in order or whatever, and to move.
Pick up your damn bloody burden, hey.
Yeah. So I was listening to that before I moved, and it worked, man. But I would say like for that purpose, I think he's really good for.
Yeah, definitely. Did somebody actually ask a question about Porten Jeterson?
Yeah. They asked that.
What do you think? Vaknin seems super anti-Peterson. Sam is very, very similar to me with Jordan Peterson. He can see the value of him, but there are things that have been said that do really need to be challenged. The things, they just need to be challenged a little bit. But he's undoubtedly a highly intelligent, highly accomplished, genuine intellectual and a brilliant psychologist with a lot to say that's very, very useful. But you don't have to be in a camp or not in a camp. You don't have to be on team or on the opposite team. You can say, I really like this guy. I think he's a great public speaker, compelling, really, really fascinating to listen to. But there are some places where things are just incorrect and they need to be corrected.
Differences in between optimism. Maybe I could do this. I just realized. Oh, that's not it. Hold on. Let me. You can read this out loud while I pull up the chat.
Differences between optimism levels between various countries during the pandemic. I don't really know. The only countries I've been to recently are Czech and UK. Optimism I haven't noticed. I've noticed bewilderment and sort of a growing indifference. So in the UK, what I've seen is people who are very pro, do as the government says, don't question anything, just put your head down and it will all go away, who are really authoritarian with it and really submissive, like sub-sluts for authority. The most devout of them are now questioning what's going on, which is interesting to see. So there is a big questioning there. Czechs seem stoic, amused, and somewhat indifferent.
Yes. What I think is that it really exaggerates certain elements of a collective's culture, the response to emotionally and mentally to a situation like this, where, for example, out here in the Czech Republic, everyone's super level-headed, if anything, really, really skeptical. And they're just not, there's no hysteria necessarily. I mean, with the government, it's a different story perhaps, but you'll see on the announcements of the what do you call it? The announcements on... So there's a government official that has an Instagram that everyone follows, and every day he posts like a yellow announcement warning signal, and all the comments usually have a bunch of laughing emojis, and they're usually just fucking around and joking with it, because that's how the Czechs deal with trauma. They just have really dark humor usually, and they just joke about it, and they don't really take things necessarily that seriously perhaps, where as opposed to Instagram posts that you see talking about this pandemic in the West, the US, everyone's like yelling and screaming at each other about shit all the fucking time, and there's way more hysteria. So I would say, just depending on each country, it really showcases what's the general attitude of a whole landmass.
Here?
What?
What was that question directed at me?
Oh no, there wasn't a question.
Oh, okay.
You were just zoning out.
I was zoning out. Somebody said, Shay said, Richard, I was just watching your video. The CIA did this a year ago. Are your thoughts still the same at the moment? Yes, absolutely. It's Alice in Wonderland interrogation technique is to completely confuse the person being interrogated by sending them different signals at the same time. Have we ever talked about this?
Yeah.
Yeah. And yes, I mean, what we are experiencing right now could be said to be the Alice in Wonderland technique. Certainly, whether it's intentional or not, the effect is the same. People are very confused and stressed. And on the opposite side of this, you know, you might see some masochistic submission. You might see some learned helplessness. You probably will see some oppositional defiance now. Now there will be more rebellion, I would think.
Yeah, briefly in the video that we just made, or in the filming session that we just had, we touched on this topic, and there was a brief little metaphor of what's more frightening and what's more anxiety-inducing when you see an actual lion come charging at you and you have to decide what to do, or you and your tribe are running away from an invisible monster that you can't even see necessarily, but you know it could possibly be there, and you have to make a decision of what to do in a situation to deal with said invisible monster. So in this case, yeah, if you're getting sent a bunch of mixed signals running away from an invisible monster, it's way more fracturing and anxiety-inducing for the human mind than an actual visible threat coming your way.
Yeah, definitely. If you have an identifiable threat, at least you can summon your forces, develop a strategy and some tactics, and attempt to defeat it. But when the threat is vague, and the description of its location and its means and its weaponry is ever changing, I mean, there doesn't seem to be much public discourse on exactly what COVID-19 is and how it differs to other viruses, which is interesting. That's not an implication of a conspiracy. I'm just saying it's interesting. We do not seem to be discussing the virus itself and the latest updates on the virus. That doesn't seem on mainstream news. What do the scientists say? How does this virus operate? What's it doing? Because we're learning all the time. They're studying it. It's a novel virus. So I don't know what the new findings are. And if I wanted to know, I'd have to go, I think, to Reddit to see. There's a thread on Reddit where epidemiologists and people who study this and know what they're doing are discussing the latest research, and it's hard to penetrate.
Can you penetrate it?
If you try. You got to be patient, though, Pappy Pierre. You got to be patient.
This is a good one. We generally will somehow end up in this topic, but what's the difference between a cult and a support group?
Probably a cult must have a totalitarian element to it and will probably be engaged in binary thinking and would probably have a rule running that says you're either with us, with the cult leader, or you're in the out group. Yeah. And the consequences would be much more severe in a cult. I
think ultimately when the last time we talked about this, we concluded if there are abusive elements, especially from the leader or with each other or whatever, that's when it is cult territory. Yeah. If no one's especially intentionally getting hurt, then it is more of a support group. But then there's a really fine line between the two. You can easily slip into the cult territory, I think.
Yeah, support groups can end up culty. Andrew Chamberlain says he sent us Tentacle Quest on fan art.
Please resend it because there's a lot of shit going through the social media wavelengths and we can't exactly get in touch with every single one sometimes.
If you could not send it on Instagram, but just send it to helpdesk@spartanlifecoach.info, then I will be sent it.
I feel that Romanians are very skeptical, but passive, believing it is not in their power to escape abuse when the British are so trusting the authorities is a shame to say that they're against. Yeah, a lot of places will showcase where their head's at collectively. Everyone deals with it different, I think. Should there be a regime change as the result of next month's U.S. election? How might a nation overcome PTSD? I don't know, because there's already a lot of PTSD in that current nation.
The word should is always interesting. Talking in the realm of should is always a little tricky and can lead to nowhere particularly positive. We're going to have to deal with the reality of the situation as it is. If we say there should be a regime change, what does that look like? What does the term regime change actually mean? When it was used as part of the justification for the Iraq invasion part 2, it was very vague. It was a very vague sort of term for perhaps that actually really meant hostile takeover.
Oh, this was actually really interesting. I think I would have to show you the post for it to make sense. But basically, apparently the UK government came out with a picture of a ballerina. Mm-hmm. And did you see this?
A black ballerina, yeah.
Yeah, and it was saying like her next job could be in cyber, which is like the internet for creatives. So rethink, reskill, reboot, saying that jobs, for example, like creatively or ballerinas or whatever might be gone, and the internet's the way to go in terms of business.
You thought you were a ballet dancer. Fuck you. The plague says that you're now a customer services rep for Next.
Mm-hmm. Like, I am definitely a creative individual, obviously, and I'm an advocate for all of the creative arts. And as insensitive as some sort of slight propaganda as that post is, I do say there's a bit of truth in there. And I do think that if you're a creative individual and you're not implementing yourself in quote unquote cyber, you're missing out on at least half of the ingredients it takes to be a successful creative, especially in the upcoming world, the new world.
The new world. There's not been much honesty around this issue. The economy has been changing dramatically since the last economic collapse in 2008, and the movement has been for a good period of time since 2008 towards working online and the gig economy. So now they seem to be attempting to accelerate that under the narrative of reboot, rethink, reskill as a response to combating the plague. It was said in the earliest days of the plague that this is probably, or rather than say probably, let me say possibly, more of an economic issue than a biological one.
So do you think that something like that has a bit of weight to it? Do you think that
Fatima will be reskilling, most likely? And it was creepy. People responded badly to it because it was a tone deaf advert. It was basically saying give up your dreams and submit.
It's just ego bruising hardcore. That's the rough truth, dude. Here's the thing, man. If you're in the creative industry, get ready to get your ego fucked up. You're an actor, you're getting rejected to castings, whether you're a musician just playing dive bar gigs, when you're a fucking painter, you might not find a gallery, man. This is a quintessential truth with chasing a creative job, and you will fail a lot. I know this from personal experience. And it's like, with that advertisement, sure, it's definitely a bit insensitive, but there is a value to learning something in the internet, especially if for example, she could apply the whole ballerina thing to making a YouTube channel that has to deal with ballet. So
yeah, it's possible. It's entirely possible. It did feel a bit Orwellian and a little bit 1984. But Pierre's right. The flip side of this is, again, since 2008, all creative types, musicians, like famous musicians who've had, number ones, have had to become entrepreneurs and marketers, and they've had to contend with the internet because it has democratized their content and made it so widely available that it's impossible really to stop people listening to your music for free. We're not in my day where you bought a cassette or a CD made by Prince, and then that's how he got his money, or through radio plays. And he saw it coming, because one of his last albums he actually gave away for free, weirdly enough through a British newspaper. I don't know why he did it, but yeah, he totally gave it away for free because he had the foresight to see with great clarity that the days of making your money through CD sales was done. So you just got your music out there for free, and then you made your money through concerts and merchandising.
There's a reason why Jay-Z came out. No. It was Dr. Dre that came out with headphones, and that's why Rihanna created a makeup line. Yeah. Because they know that there's less money in actually producing music online, and there's more in starting a business with that brand name attached. Yeah. Can you dance in clubs in Prague? Poland, dancing is banned now. Yeah, the clubs are all shut too.
No dancing, no bachata classes, no dancing, no conversing, and no fornicating, no friction.
No nothing.
Thank you, UG Rose, for moderating today.
Are you saying we need to change? Oh, are we saying we need to change with the times? If so, are we going the right way? Bruce Lee said, as you quoted earlier, that a fool. Finish the rest, please.
The wise person adapts themselves to the environment. The fool insists that the environment adapt to them.
Whatever the situation is, there are times to fight and there are times to adapt. And I think in certain situations, it's better to adapt. And it doesn't hurt to try to move with the current instead of just fight against it. So we definitely have to figure out ways to adjust to the ever-evolving economy.
And remember, there's nothing new. There's nothing new about this. I moved all my business to an online format in 2004 because I drank the Kool-Aid of an internet marketing cult that happened to be right, that said everything would move online. They were making like predictions back in 2004, like, when you go on a search engine, Google's going to give you a response based on your it's called geolocation. They'll know where you are. All the stuff that we take for granted now, the idea of having adverts that knew who you were and what you wanted. These were like lofty predictions for a distant future that in the time we live in, we've been living with for years already.
There you go. Any more questions? Keep the topics coming, my friends. Do you see anything that you see?
How do we protect ourselves against the multi-pronged on our jobs, rights, mental health, and medical freedoms? You can only do what you can do, and you've got to do what you can do. So, if you try to take on the world's burden and society's burden, you're going to get very, very stressed out and exhausted quickly. But if you deal with your space, your little plot of land, your territory, and you protect yourself, and then I would say tune out from mainstream media and social media a lot more. Be much more disciplined with how much of that stuff you consume.
You never know what's going to happen in the world. You really don't. I don't think anybody even 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago can predict the traumatic shift, the paradigm shift that we're going through now in the last 3 months. I mean, who would have thought something stable like being a doctor is no longer stable? So do what you can in the meantime with the circumstances, and then adjust accordingly, adapt accordingly.
Yeah.
Romeo out here says at his job, they're installing anti-COVID machines called Captivate. It provides hand sanitizer with facial recognition to detect whether or not you're wearing a mask, and it checks your core temperature. Bro, what? Dude.
Well done to the entrepreneurs behind Captivate. What a frightening name.
Dude. You are now captive.
Are you obeying the orthodoxy, or are you not?
Yo, you want to see what the Illuminati texted me? I'm not even lying. The government here has been sending a text to everybody. It's all in Czech, but it says here this is where you download the app to register if you have COVID or not.
Oh damn! So I guess I need to get that.
Yeah, man. So yeah, I got a mass text. My friends out here got the same text, not requiring or suggesting, hopefully politely, that you register if you got the test or not.
Blackthorn Romeo says it's so Orwelliani. Bro, I was okay with it for lab usage, but they're installing it in offices too.
That's my limit with technology, man. And I'm already half cyborg and android, but fucking a hand sanitizer that scans your fucking face if you're wearing a mask and checks your temperature, dude? What the fuck? Damn.
Somebody asked before if ADHD is a real condition.
Here we go. I'm gonna keep quiet on this one. Put this fucking shit on my mouth.
It would depend on what you meant by real condition. All psychological conditions that you can name, barring a very, very few, have no biological test for them. You can't blood test for depression or anxiety or narcissistic personality disorder. There isn't a neurotransmitter test that reliably tells us there's anything there. So is ADHD a condition or an effect? The debate rages on. I suspect that as a result of trauma, people become addicted to their own adrenaline, and they become adrenophiles. This is a term I learnt from the psychiatrist living opposite me in Heswell when we were putting out the bins one day at the same time, and I made some comment about the weather and got into a conversation with him about ADHD, and he was of the view that ADHD was not a discrete, separate condition, but that people could become adrenophiles. So if you say somebody's addicted to their own adrenaline, is there a virus that they've caught that causes that, or is it trauma that trains them that that's a good way to deal with pain and suffering? These are interesting questions, and they're in the realm somewhere between psychology and philosophy and epistemology even. You've got to get into how do we know what we know and how do we study the things that we claim we know. I am not in the camp that encourages medicalizing things that are not medical conditions. ADHD is a somewhat useful description of a cluster of symptoms.
I'm not going to say anything about it because I know how that ended up last time.
You just stay away from that minefield, son.
Yeah, I just live with it.
Elizabeth Bird says there are brain structure differences, but is it chicken or egg? Yeah, we don't know what's cause and what's effect. And there is a logical fallacy of cum hoc ergo propter hoc, which means with this, therefore because of this. So we have to be very, very careful.
Keep the texts coming, my friends. In the meantime, Scooter, see anything?
Somebody said, Richard, what do you think of transactional analysis? I think it's cool.
Okay.
It's a whole field of study that I just said was cool.
Sometimes that's all you got to say, man.
Transactional analysis. Dope.
Yeah.
Swag.
Dude, so okay, hey, if you were, this was actually a real suggestion out here that I think Germany might have actually hopped on it, or maybe it's already there. The idea that I farted. I'm kidding. No, the idea
the Germans are discussing it right now. He has made a poopy.
They were implementing that you have to register with an app to go eat at a restaurant, and they'll check if you already have the COVID or you had a test before you actually can go in the restaurant and sit down and eat.
Okay.
Would you do it so you can eat out?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, these are undoubtedly questions that I'll be forced to answer in the next 12 months. We got the thing of like, I want to go to America to see my sister and my nephews. Would I take a vaccine, you know, to get there if I required a medical passport in order? And the answer to that is probably no. You know, these are all questions that we will all be forced to answer at some point. I don't really know, and again, I'm just a humble content creator, why we don't follow the Swedish model of protecting the vulnerable and then doing everything we can to just remain physically distanced and to slow the spread like that, like responsible adults.
But think about this though, practicality. Like, ideally, I think everybody here would be like, "Fuck that! I ain't gonna to register for an app to go eat at a restaurant." But let's actually like ground it for a bit. If we were like, "Yo, you want to go get Mediterranean?" I'd be like, oh, "We can't though. We need to register. We need to get a test and register." And I have a very important date that I have to go to too, but I don't want to register. But so what do I do? Like, do you do that? Do you register so you can actually have a fucking life or not?
If I had faith and trust in the government that was telling me to do it, then yes, probably, because I don't think it's that big of a deal. I'm not one of these people who's obsessed about being tracked and traced. I carry an iPhone and I use social media. It's not like they can't find me if they can't find me if they want to find me. So yeah, I wouldn't. It's not the hill. What is the expression? That's not the hill I would die on. That's not the battle I would choose to like make my last stand on.
Yeah, that's a tough one, man. Because the alternative is like, what are you gonna do? You literally, if you fight against that, you're gonna be that Karen on Karen's Going Wild, going like, I'm gonna register for nothing. You're gonna be fucking publicly like circulated, dude. So that's what happens if you try to fight that in a fucking restaurant. You know what I mean?
The little bit that I've seen from the epidemiologists that are not being covered in mainstream media, they do fairly consistently say that testing and tracking is a good idea if there is a pandemic.
That's fuck, man. It's a tough one because I know that when it gets implemented, probably right. When it gets implemented, it's going to be really hard to just say no to something like that. You know what I mean?
But that toothpaste is well out of the tube with Facebook.
Yeah, everything's already out.
So where do we draw the line? Where do we start getting all, you know, trill and drawing the line and saying I'm not putting up with this? Well, if you put up with it over here when it wasn't an issue surrounded in hysteria, why are you fighting it over here? And then how much of it becomes like not virtue signaling, but sort of virtue signaling to yourself maybe.
Yeah.
It's like when people say somebody comes online and they come on your YouTube channel and they criticize you for a thing that you're doing. One of the questions that you can ask, but never would because it would lead to insane, like a flame war, is this really an issue you care about? You know, you're wearing a bandana and I don't like that. You're vaping and I don't like that. So is this an issue you really care about? Yes. Okay, so how many people this week have you attacked for vaping and wearing a bandana? Well, nobody, just you. Okay, are you very concerned about your health? Are you extremely fat? You know, like, why are you choosing this to be the issue? Why am I the person that you're focused on? If you really care about this, show some consistency. So there's a lot of, it's not lying, but it's disingenuous. It's a little bit disingenuous to me. Like, I'm absolutely against being tracked. Here's my food that I ate today in the restaurant, you know, and you fucking post it on Instagram and tag the people who. I'm like, you're not against being tracked at all. You fucking love being tracked, you little pervert.
I feel like but like some of these people would definitely be the same ones to go eat at a restaurant, take a picture of their food, then tag the location of the food that they went to. You know, so yeah, there's an inconsistency problem here.
I don't want to be tracked. Well, then, you know, make that consistent throughout all of your behaviors. I'm not saying we should just go along with everything, but I don't know. There just seems to, my biggest concern is that coming back to the point I made earlier, is I don't trust these governments. I don't have faith in them because they're not acting in a trustworthy way. They're not behaving faithfully. So the higher order problem that maybe needs focusing on is, why do you, why does anybody no longer trust the messages that we're getting? And there must be a solution to that. We must be able to recreate that trust.
Denise, I believe, is in Germany, so here's some insight. But here in Germany, we have to leave our contact information in restaurants and cafes in order to be tracked down in case there's a COVID case.
Same in UK.
Oh man, that is very Orwellian though, man. It's like you gotta leave your address at a restaurant.
It is and it isn't. Like when I went into it, is if they were doing something with it, but it all feels like purely symbolic gesture. So some tired waitress is like, "Can I please have your name and the phone number and get the NHS and the track and trace?" And then she just goes, "Yeah," and doesn't even listen to your number. When we went to the UK, we had to put in a contact location form, which you have to do online on the government website. It takes 20 minutes per person to do it. We got our QR code, and then when we arrived at passport control, nobody asked for the fucking things. So it's like hundreds of thousands of hours wasted of humans going online to get QR codes for track and trace that then go nowhere.
It is all symbolic gesture from what I have seen, man. It's got to look like we're doing something in the meantime, because if we don't look like we're doing something, then we'll look like we're not doing anything, and we are responsible for the demise of humanity.
And that seems to be the guiding principle of what the governments are operating under. How much should I care about people who only care about their public image telling me what to do when they're restricting my civil liberties, and they're doing it because somebody sent them a mean tweet, or they're worried about what their polls look like? It's a systemic problem. But I wear a mask when I go to restaurants, and I wear a mask when I fly on planes, and I'm not a dick about it because
Is that the hill you want to die on?
Is that the hill I want to die on? No, not particularly. And there is still a chance that this hysteria may pass.
Hysteria, man. I think we briefly talked about this. Feel free to keep sending in your questions in the meantime. But really quickly, we've talked about this a few times. I even talked this with my friend. Like, it feels like we're reaching an age where we're all sharing the same collective disassociation. The baseline reality for everyone right now is disassociative. Like, none of us feel grounded. What is there to feel grounded on? Everything is just like a fucking surreal dream. So strange.
Yeah. You can't even plan.
You can't even plan.
What should we do next week? Well, what will we be allowed to do? I mean, and think about it. Like, we're finding out what to do through Instagram posts from the one black politician in the Czech parliament whose Instagram profile is called Afro Choc.
Choco Afro.
Choco Afro. And he sends out these ironic Instagram posts letting you know what the government is saying. And that's how we keep up to date. Like, Pierre sends me the Choco Afro.
It's so surreal because we're getting real government information through Choco Afro on Instagram. And they're real information. And he'll make memes about the fact that how silly the government is with the warnings about the warning posts that he's already posting. Yeah. Like, this is a dream world, man.
Yeah, it's refractive. It's like everything reflects back on itself, but it becomes slightly more blurry with each reflection. And so you're laughing, but when you laugh at it, you kind of go ha 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 into this disassociative dreamlike state, going, am I really finding out what I'm allowed to do tomorrow? Because they've been changing it within days, hours. Like, just group texts go around going, yeah, tomorrow all the restaurants are closing. And you go, ha ha ha. Oh, they are really closing. Shit. It just happens like that. It's gone.
Yeah, it was that weird disassociative surreal moment just today. After 4 hours of shooting, we usually get our fucking routine Mediterranean dinner. And I was like, okay, you want to go down the street? Oh, we can't. What? Everything's closed for a month, dude.
Yeah.
Until November. It's like...
And that's at least. And what bothers me a little bit is that the information sphere is dense on what you may and may not do. So it's dense on what, it's not dense on how, and it's not dense on why. Where's the new data? If the government is saying, oh, Professor Bingleboggle from the University of Binglepap says that they found that the plague has this third leg that sticks out, and we thought it was doing this last month, but now we know it's doing something else. We've got to change this up. It would be useful if they said we found through scientific testing that the replication rate, something beyond death certificates, because we all know that these death certificates are being partially falsified and the numbers are being pumped up. So I'm like, we're making these decisions based on death certificates when we already know and have known for months that that's not a reliable source of information. It's a little tough. They're being done on death certificates, hospital admissions, and infection rates based on testing. But the little bit I know about statistics through being forced to do it in the psychology degree, I can see multiple problems with that. When you just go, here are the numbers, and I'm like, well, where did you get them?
It's just trial and error, man. They're just trying anything without anything just to see what works, because they need to do something, because everything is like what? Performative, spectacle.
It's performative, it's a spectacle, yeah.
The society of spectacle is what that thing is, and as long as you look like you're doing action, it's supposed to be commendable, but sometimes it's like the less you do, sometimes the better.
Let me say that what I just said in a slightly tighter, more disciplined way, because we've been shooting for 4 hours. We're both a little bit zonked. I would just like to see more science, fact, and data. I would just love to. I would feel so much better. Fuck it, lie to me, but show me some figures and tell me how you got them. I'm not a moron. Like, don't assume the public are too stupid to understand the process of statistical analysis. Try and explain it. Just go, this is why we're doing what we're doing. We need a reason. And if we're given a reason and it's proven false in 3 months' time, we just go, well, that's science, kids. Suck it up. Sorry, but science isn't a perfect science. Things change when new data comes in. That's the nature of science. It just doesn't feel very scientific. It doesn't seem to be very data-based. That's what I wanted to say.
As long as they can fucking wrap it in some glitter wrapping paper and put a pink bow on top of it, and then with a little sign that says, I'm doing this for the greater good, then maybe people will listen. Like, It needs to be an image, it needs to be glittery, it needs to be flowery, it needs to be ceremonial. Otherwise, like, people don't give a fuck about things, because in the social media world, everything needs to be a show. It needs to be a fucking show.
But if you're a government sat on a big budget and you can make adverts and make infographics,
right?
But I read an article just the other day saying that by a guy who'd covered Brexit, and he said Brexit feels to him as a journalist, as an investigative journalist, very much like the plague, in that it's almost like a failure of communication. The government is not saying, look, folks, this is what's going on, so this is why we're doing what we're doing. We're getting dibs and dribs and drabs, and today it's this and tomorrow it's that, and it just doesn't feel like a cohesive, strong, courageous message, because I think my pet theory is they're terrified of being wrong, which is, it's cowardice, really.
Saving face.
Saving face, basically, yeah.
They need to look like they're doing something so people don't yell at them, and they can't be wrong because they're the government and they can't be wrong.
Yeah. So Nolka said, before presidential election, number of cases of COVID in Poland dropped. So statistically, you would say, oh, look, the cases have dropped. Turns out they just stopped making so many tests for a while. That's statistics.
Yep,
That's
little
statistics.
nuances.
I was forced not just to study statistics, but as part of my degree, I had to participate in. I had to make my own psychology experiment, and that was my dissertation. And I had to engage in 10 other psychology experiments. And tainting numbers, it's like you could do it like that. You can taint results mistakenly at the drop of a hat just through human error.
Well, I mean, think about sitting through fucking long division in high school. You know how you mess up one segment? You accidentally put 3 + 2 is 6 in one part of that equation. Changes the whole result in the end. In the same way that statistical analysis could be. You literally change one tiny little variable and the entire result changes too.
Well, my long-term ex was a marine biologist, and she ended up working with quite a famous professor of marine biology. And she said with the results we were getting through studying dolphins, she said we could make the numbers say whatever we want. We would just use a different statistical model. We can make it look like the dolphins are doing this. We can make it look like they feed more during mating,
Richard,
whatever they want.
Don't some of these experiments get funded and they'll get awarded more money depending on a particular result?
You goddamn conspiracy theorist! How dare you suggest that there could be an agenda to some of these experiments?
I'm just saying they get money if like the experiments go well, right?
Are you daring to suggest that scientists are not as susceptible to human frailty as the rest of us and could be bought? You terrible, terrible human. How very dare you, sir?
I was just asking a question, which we can't do anymore.
No.
We can't ask questions, dude.
Burn the witch, burn the witch, burn the witch. Burn the question maker.
One individual has been screaming that social media makes girls superficial, and then like guys end up wanting girls like that because social media makes them superficial.
I saw one before that said, "Are you two MGTOWs?"
Is that a disease?
I think that's what COVID mutates into.
Do I get to keep my tiny nips in the meantime?
Your nips are safe, sir.
Okay, that's all I care about
for
then.
now.
It could be an opportunity in improving cultures, initiating more formal boundaries in daily exchanges, etiquette, and respect, but we need to be trusted as a public. Interesting.
Yeah, trusting the public would be nice. Not being treated as children would be very pleasant.
Forget masks. Let's put paper bags over our heads. But here's the thing, guys. I really like masks in general. One of my first favorite bands ever was Slipknot. You know Slipknot? Mm-hmm. I would be like, what is it called? The Venetian Masquerade that happens annually.
Right.
What is that called?
As far as I know, it's the Venetian Masquerade. I don't know what it's called. Please help me out, guys.
Slipknot.
Slipknot.
Slipknot, dude.
Accidental pregnancy. Slipknot.
But, you know, my affinity towards a mask is more of a theatrical thing. So I don't even know where the fuck I was going with that, man. Slipknot.
Richard, as a martial artist, what do you think about the emergence of UFC and combat sports around the world with collective desensitization to violence and dehumanization? Colosseum time soon. It's another manifestation of the bread and circuses effect that's there to placate the masses. I like combat sports. It's done wonders for combat sports. I mean, my God, you look at the UFC fighters of today, compare them to 25 years ago, and it's a very different beast. So it's wonderful to see people engaging in an athletic endeavor and seeing it evolve in that way. But yes, it's absolutely bread and circuses.
I like that it exists, because if we didn't have anything to replace the direct implementation of the Colosseum days, then we would really fuck each other up. I'm glad that there is a controlled approach to the Colosseum, which is the UFC and MMA. I'm glad that exists. Well, does it incorporate desensitization? Maybe, but when someone gets knocked the fuck out, you'll wince quite a bit still. Yeah. And there's the thing, that stuff is an art form too. Martial arts, man. I enjoy those things, not for the sake of people getting fucked up, but more the sake of there's a strategy to it. There's an art form in terms of, like, you know, I like that part. Men have testosterone, so sports is an outlet. That's exactly why how I feel about supposed violent video games too. When you have all of these dudes that can't implement they can't fucking satiate their need for this strange violence for some reason, and like if they can get on a thing with Call of Duty with 5 of their homies and implement a plan to take down the other team through shooting guns and shit, I'm glad that's an outlet for that, because what else is going to happen? They might try to visualize that in real life or whatever, some other type of thing. Am I tripping? Is that good?
No, it's good. It's good. I
Okay.
think so. You know, it can be healthy. Can be healthy if it's controlled. It's actually done wonders for the martial arts as well. There was a lot of people getting away with a lot of shit pre-MMA, where now you have an educated public who just won't tolerate it. And there's a lot of traditional martial artists who are basically running cults, who then tried MMA and got socked in the jaw, which is healthy.
Yeah. The thing is, that testosterone needs to go somewhere, man. That shit finds a way out, and if there's a good way to get it out safely, whatever that might mean, then the better.
Blackthorn Romeo says, toxic masculinity outlet for the win.
There you go. Romeo's cool, man. Like him.
Have your questions one sentence long, folks, and end in a question mark. That would be good. Did you see Megan the Stallion? Could you please give her 2 E's in the, as she's the
Bottom
stallion.
of your face.
Why is Megan calling herself a male horse, by the way? Why do you think she realizes stallion is a anyway?
Don't ask, man.
Because she's animus possessed. Bottom of
ask.
your face. I don't know. I haven't seen that.
What do you think she'll do with the bottom of your face?
I think she'll get that beard wet.
Wop.
Wop, wop, wop. She'll swipe my nose like a credit card, leave me with a wet beard before breakfast.
I think a hormone does not affect how a person thinks in the long term. I believe it's just the person's tendency.
I wanted to do that line from Wish Wish, but I can't.
What was it?
You know, the 21 Savage line? Your girl got that crazy hair, like a Kanye tweet. But it's not girl that he says.
Oh, okay. I see.
I restrained myself.
Nice.
My Tourette's is kicking in.
Oh, dude, they're gonna nail you on the crucifix for that one.
Your girlfriend has crazy hair like a Kanye tweet.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about e-commerce and drop shipping? Yeah, it's wonderful. Yes, e-commerce.
Whatever works.
Something I engage in on the daily. Have done for 16 years now. So yeah, it's great.
You guys should smoke more often before you come on.
We're not actually high. Well,
It's hookah, which is nicotine. It's
Yeah.
not like an actual cannabis plant.
and then a quickly imbibed dose of chicken and rice and veg.
Yeah, dude, it's funny. We're literally sober for pretty much all of these live streams, but we come off extremely inebriated every single time.
We come off as extremely inebriated. And let me tell you something. let me listen. I've always loved you.
How do we distinguish trustworthy facts of information to alternative facts in a world where everyone's being vague?
Well, you know, we can actually go and fact check for ourselves. There is a ton of information there. I've noticed, and I'm not saying you, dear questioner, but many people online are very reluctant to go and open another tab on Google Chrome and just take a look for like 5 or 6 minutes. There's plenty of published research on Google Scholar. We would all do well to learn how to read an abstract and a conclusion of a paper. You know, just read the top, scroll all the way down, forget the stats, read the bottom, and just see if you can understand what they're saying. It's supposed to be understandable. They're not supposed to write in obfuscatory language. They're supposed to make it clear. Don't be afraid to go and look and check for yourself.
What are your views on the over the reliance of medicating psychological conditions?
Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. It's not a good idea to medicalize generally, but the medicalization of psychological conditions, generally speaking, not helpful, because a lot of them simply aren't medical conditions that a medically qualified doctor can or should be trying to help you with. Sometimes they're philosophical problems, and I'm not saying that to be inflammatory or, you know, try and say something cool and weird. I mean very literally, like, psychology is a branch of philosophy. Sometimes a person's problem is not a psychological, medical sounding virus. It's a philosophical problem. Their approach to life is a little off, which Jordan Peterson, the psychologist, taught us. He was teaching us kind of elements of Stoic philosophy, applied psychology in a very practical way.
It's, I think, a very, very nuanced topic. You know, some people, I would say, would definitely need some pharmaceuticals or medicalization, depending on what it is. Some people don't. And I think that there are ways to approach it philosophically in order to subdue whatever you need to subdue, man. So there's a lot of in-betweens, I think.
Potent the Rockstar is here.
What's up, Potent?
I see you, Potent.
The
Shay, what philosophy appeals to you most at this time? Ooh.
Myself.
I've been reading a lot of Nietzsche, and I approach my personal problems through a very Adlerian lens at the moment. So Nietzsche, psychoanalysis, and I know that's not strictly philosophy, but they were informed by the philosopher Nietzsche.
I'm like more in the Jungian side. He's like more Freud.
I'm doing a lot of shadow work right now.
Shadow work. I like Jung. I like Terence McKenna.
I love Terence McKenna.
I like him. And Alan Watts is really nice.
Alan Watts is super cool.
Yeah.
Anybody who's big on YouTube, that's who I would listen to.
Yeah, pretty much. Should we try to shelter teens or give them the raw truth?
You must do both. They are children. Yin and yang.
Ooh.
Damn.
Love doesn't exist, little Timmy.
It's just hormones, bro.
You ready for a divorce, little Timmy?
Hey, Timmy, come here. See your little girlfriend there? You love her, right? Fucking shame, Timmy. She's gonna die one day, Timmy. Also, love doesn't exist. Okay, Timmy. Have a good day, son. Daddy loves you. Oh, except love doesn't exist. You were a mistake, Timmy. You made me marry your god-awful mother. Have a good day at school.
Give him one.
You were a Slipknot.
You were a Slipknot, my little Timmy.
He's now known as Lil Slipknot.
And that's how you breed a really successful artist.
That's it. Percocet and abusive names.
Little Slipknot, and then he becomes a little Slipknot.
Yeah.
And then he ends up taking over, and then
Yeah.
he makes a shit ton of money, and
Shit
then
ton
he
of
just, and then Dad comes back. Sorry, that's a little Timmy.
Don't you love me, son?
I mean, you did use the name that I gave you, you know.
So in a way, I kind of created all of this success for you, you little bastard.
Where's my check?
Little Slipknot. You came from my left testicle. You owe me something.
Yo, give your children just a little sprinkle of truth, not the whole bottle of it.
Yeah, not the whole bottle. That's
Yeah,
good advice.
just like sprinkle just a little bit. You know, they get sick if you feed them the whole damn thing, man.
Try not to tell them they were a mistake.
Little Slipknot.
So much laughter. That's good. Laugh more, guys. Hey, find ways to make yourself laugh more in these times.
In these times.
For real, though.
Let's go through the old stand-up comedy routines that they have on YouTube.
Dude, for real, man. Like that's, I mean, I'm doing that approach with my own live streams just because it's the only thing that keeps me sane as well as whoever shows up, man.
Yeah. Good humor comes from suffering for sure. Like good bleak humor comes from suffering. Great time to rediscover Richard Pryor. Wow, what a genius.
Because, okay, with that type of edgy humor, it's a release of anger in a positive way. Mm-hmm. And everyone right now needs that release of anger in a positive way. And I think a lot of those past comedians that were deemed inappropriate or whatever would have more of a place now to a certain crowd, because it's a good release, man. You know, it's like, what am I supposed to do? Not joke about fucking anything, how life and the reality is disintegrating because it's insensitive? Like, dude, I don't need a fucking dog.
Don't make me feel bad. Somebody wrote the question. They said they were reading Thus Spake Zarathustra, and they said, Nietzsche said God is dead. How do you interpret that statement? If you look at the whole quote that comes from, because people just give you God is dead, there's a whole paragraph, and there's no interpretation to the statement. Nietzsche was perfectly clear with what he meant. He is lamenting modernism. He is lamenting the fact that we have killed God, and in his stead, in order to he uses very flowery language to say what I'm about to say. In order to justify that murder, we put ourselves in God's place, and in that sense, you know, Nietzsche, undeniable genius with great foresight, because he could see over 100 years into the future of exactly what would happen in a post modern world, in a post ideological world. So God is dead is not like, yes, God is dead, fuck the world and fuck the church. God is dead is like, wow, this is really bad. We've made a tremendous error here. And he also said that not only will we put ourselves in God's place, but in order to cleanse our hands of God's blood, we will create festivals and spectacles neurotically just to try and cover that shame and guilt.
There you go. Guys, don't get mad at Richard. YouTube literally has an algorithm that just removes comments. Dude, okay, I need to...
Hang on a second. He said, Richard, do you delete your YouTube comments? If so, how can you say you're anti-censorship? I wouldn't say I'm anti-censorship. I would say I'm... And the other thing is I'm very anti-stupidity, and I'm anti-troll, and I'm anti-moron. So absolutely, I'll delete moronic comments all day long. I usually block them as well.
In my case, I probably don't do that much deleting, but literally there's a fucking algorithm that just swipes a bunch of comments to a different folder, dude. Get mad at YouTube for the censoring. It's like, I don't fucking like look at individuals. I don't like your profile picture. Bye. It's not that specific. It's just like, yo, your comment got moved.
Yeah.
What can I say, man?
Yeah. So sometimes I delete, but it's rare. It's very, very rare that I would delete them. I'd need to have 15 minutes free to bother my arse to read the comments, which I typically don't unless it's in the hour right after I release the video, because that's when I see my most loyal followers come through. So the comments are usually made in good faith. The longer the video is there, the more bad faith actors are likely to come on and say things that are just there to trigger other people reading the comments, or just there to gain a negative reaction. So absolutely, I would delete those comments and I'd block those users. It's like this with my thumb.
It's like half the time I ain't even reading your shit. It's like, how can I remove you? I didn't even see the comment. Dang. I
don't know what Taro-chan is necessarily on, but there's a lot of screaming about girls superficial, and then now Japanese girls wear the color pink as skirts more than any other country in the world. Just so you know.
Fascinating.
More about Japanese girls here.
Really?
Yeah, lots of stuff about Japanese girls.
Taro-chan, could you stop that, please?
No, it's fine. It's good information. I think it's very beneficial to
It's
all of us.
relevant to the conversation. Everybody needs to know.
Prob is men think angry woman give him better flip.
I would not agree. Well, I certainly don't.
It's hard to get past just the first stage
With a truly angry
if I'm getting screamed at because I'm vaping too hard.
Yeah.
That doesn't get me going.
It doesn't. I don't find it particularly charming facing a wall of resentful.
No, actually,
rage.
I take that back. I love it when they do that. I'll just be there like this.
Pierre!
Keep going. Keep going.
Oh, yeah.
Keep going.
Pierre, it's wrong. You're wrong. Stop it, Pierre.
Higher.
Pierre, it's bad.
Tell me I'm worthless.
You're fucking worthless.
Oh god. Oh yes.
It works every time, man.
Every time.
Every single time. That's actually why I read my YouTube comments in order to deal with no flipping.
Whilst masturbating.
Yeah,
furiously.
I flip myself reading comments criticizing every essence of my being.
You shouldn't vape.
Oh god.
I love it, dude. That's why you delete your comments more than me, because I leave them on so I could reread them later.
Did you guys ever see Christian Slater in the movie Pump Up the Volume, about him running a pirate radio? Did you ever see that? He plays a character on pirate radio called Happy Harry Hardon, who basically he sits there pretending to. You guys should see it. It's a classic.
Oh Jesus, I know that sounds.
It was about YouTube podcasting, but via CB radio. It was for Gen X. Happy Harry Hardon.
Oh, what's the question, Mona? Can you please retype it, please?
Sorry if we missed your question. Just retype, resend, retype, resend. We'll get it in the end.
Covida could literally end tomorrow and we would just go with it. But everyone's business would be in shambles. It could go on for a while. Richard, will you please discuss your take on the perils of sentimentality? They want you, not me, unfortunately.
I find this bloody hurtful. Sentimentality, to keep it brief, is sort of blue pilling reality and adding a layer of Disney and rom-com to the way things are, and it keeps you in a not so usefully soppy mode of being. There's actually a really good article that came out recently based it wasn't a condemnation of empathy, but it's based on scientific research warning against an over deification of empathy and how it can go wrong. I'll pull it. One of the Spartan life coaches sent it to me, so I'm just going to pull that up. If you could answer a question.
Yeah. In the meantime, I know you didn't ask me, and you wanted Richard's opinion, so mine doesn't really matter that much. But I'm feeling really sentimental about this right now. And here's the thing, guys. I turn up the reverb, and here's the thing. It's like I'm actually quite a sentimental person. I used to be very, very sentimental. And quite a sensitive person in general, but I realized that viewing life through that lens has been the results of a lot of fucking pain actually growing up and adjusting to the world. If I could figure out ways or had some guidance in order to actually function, then I would have been a lot better adjusted. Let's just say that.
The article is from BBC Future. It's called The Surprising Downsides of Empathy. Sorry if you can't see that. The Surprising Downsides of Empathy. And it cites recent scientific studies that indicate that empathy, counterintuitively, can actually generate a lot of aggression in people and a lot of violence in people. It polarizes people because empathy encourages you to dissolve your boundaries and take the other person's pain as your own. Far more useful, it says in this article, and I agree, is the Buddhist concept of compassion and kindness. You don't have to live the other person's pain to be helpful towards them. So we actually are in a state of far too much empathy and too little kindness and compassion.
It can breed a lot of resentment, because if you're overly sentimental or empathic, generally you'll be used. People would stomp over you or take you for granted, and all of this stuff eventually becomes resentment in the long term. You'll be furious. You'll be like, why does the world do this? Why? Because I've been following the false narrative of as long as you just keep giving out, you'll get it back in return, which is definitely not the case in the real world. You'll be extremely bitter and jaded, and one day you'll have a bandana with eye makeup with box braids screaming about how life sucks.
Reading from the article, super briefly, a final downside of empathy is its sometimes incapacitating emotional impact. The philosopher Susan Langer once called empathy an involuntary breach of individual separateness. And this seems to apply particularly when we observe somebody suffering. So an involuntary breach of individual separateness is a philosopher's way of saying a dissolution of interpersonal boundaries. If you follow what I do on my YouTube channel, I'm big on boundaries. They really keep you sane. They hold together societal cohesion. We need boundaries. Sometimes it's good to dissolve them, but generally speaking, we need boundaries.
I learned that from your videos, Richard. There's my moment of sentimentality. We can move on now. But no, seriously, my life got way better once I actually learned what the fuck boundaries were and implemented them in my life. So everything's run a lot more smooth because of that. What's a good counterbalance emotion to resentment? Gratitude. Is it gratitude?
Gratitude is good. Humility is really good. So there's like a state of mind you can get into. The Taoists would talk about sort of the shrinking the self and being small, where your appetite for things shrinks and you take delight in the smaller things of life. Our culture will not encourage that, so you have to swim upstream against cultural conditioning and say, no, I want simplicity, I want something small, I want something that's in the moment and that's real. And then you go into a state, yes, gratitude. Predominantly it's humility. So you're humble, you know you're going to die one day, you know that you're just an individuated point of consciousness full of like, you know, unconscious traps and tricks and whatever, and all your trauma and all your weirdness and all your limitations, and that's okay. It's totally okay. It's totally human. And then spiking off from that would be the gratitude and appreciation. to just really appreciate the smaller things in life will cure resentment. Resentment really requires a degree of entitlement and narcissism to be buried deep. And if the entitlement and narcissism is big enough, the resentment will become Nietzsche's concept of ressentiment, pardon my French, which is where you start to have identified groups of people who are causing your suffering, who then need to be punished and victimized. And it gets very dangerous very quickly.
Like you, Richard.
Like me, Pierre.
Like you.
Like me, Pierre. It's my fault.
It's your fault.
It's my fault.
How do you know if someone's being manipulative or don't want to make it awkward or an enemy? Walk away.
Yeah.
Cut it off.
Cut it off, yeah.
Any advice for people who experience fear when you talk about the rise of narcissism and psychopathy? It's scary.
What would you say to somebody who said they were panicking about the rise of narcissism?
Accept it and just accept it and move away from it. You know, I mean, I don't really have anything other than that. Just
there is only so much you can do, isn't there? I mean,
Yeah.
you do have to kind of accept it. The way I look at it is, I would say it's a necessary part of the evolution of human consciousness. It's natural in a sense for us to be narcissistic. If you look at the human animal for what it is, without sentimentality, without sugarcoating it, and see how we've evolved and what we're good at, what we're evolved for. We're a machine adapted to a function. Of course we're narcissistic. Of course we're psychopathic. It's a wonder we're not worse. We're doing very well.
Do you think it's good to have different sides of yourself? Because nowadays I feel like I've become so comfortable with who I really am. Like I don't have to pretend anymore. It's a little vague.
This is a little vague. There shouldn't be too many versions of you.
Fuck, I'm fucking up then. I got too many, man.
Obviously, the person I am when I'm playing with my baby nephews is not the person I am if I'm working nightclub security, but the core values don't shift. And I try to remember that. I actually find it really useful. It's one of the things that being around my sister's children has taught me is I'm because my attachment with her was so strong, I never want to do or say anything that is too far from their vision of what Uncle Richard is. So being extremely savage, extremely cruel. I was complimented the other day for never speaking badly about people behind their backs. And it's one of those things where I would never want my nephews to see that sort of a thing. But similarly, I'd never want my nephews to see me headbutt a drunk in the face, and damn sure I would if I had to. Uncle Richard needs to do this now. Kadunk. Don't look, kids.
In terms of different sides, all I have to do is put on one clothing article that's different.
Yeah.
And then I'm a completely different character. I put these glasses on the other day, and I changed my whole background to a laboratory and just played Flip Jobs, showcasing his new device.
It does give you a very different look.
Oh, without the bandana, I'm just a whole different person.
Okay.
So I guess if you're an entertainer and you like to play characters, it's fine. But I guess the problem is when it crosses a quintessential moral code. You know, you get away if one side of you is just a complete morally corrupt person, and that other side is like, I'm okay.
Pierre, what is your favorite movement within the history of art and music?
Ooh, that's a good one. And I like anything in the 80s. I love 80s stuff just because it's so extra flamboyant and obnoxious. It's relentless in terms of color and borderline or really cringy stuff. I love stuff that came out of that time because it was so unapologetic. It felt like a really free time just because everybody just really pushed whatever they wanted to push. You?
Me?
Yeah.
I was just thinking about the 80s. We had a show in the UK called Top of the Pops.
Yeah.
And one of the things I like to do is go back and watch like Duran Duran perform on Top of the Pops, but look at the crowd and look at how they're dancing and then try and dance like that. Okay. It's really weird. They're so disjointed and so out of rhythm. It's so I got into this thing where I would do that every time I would drink. I would try the Top of the Pops dance, and it feels so weird. You're like, There's people literally doing this
Yeah.
to Duran Duran.
Yo, I love bad dancing. I don't even mean that
great.
sarcastically.
No, it's awesome.
Because people are fucking free,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
That's what I like about it. I don't give a damn how bad you are.
Yep.
At least you're free to dance badly.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. There's no ego. People aren't trying to be famous. They're not. They know they're on TV. It's a buzz. They're young and they're just dancing.
I love it.
It's wild. It's good for. I recommend watching it.
If you compared a video from the 80s to now, you can smell the self-consciousness of the time we live in now. It's
You're right.
disgusting. It smells like car oil and rotten banana peels, man.
Do you miss dancing bachata? I still dance every day, at least once a day. I'll do at least one track. If I have nobody to dance with, I'll do it on my own. So
Oh, that's so sweet.
yeah, man. Usually when I'm brushing my teeth or I'm in the shower or something.
I need to start dancing more. I'm just waking up at like 11, wrapped up in a blanket, not even want to crawl out of bed.
Tell you what, it changes my physical and emotional state so quickly. Just
Okay.
like the 3.5 minute track, bust out a few moves, I feel good.
All right, I got to do that.
Yeah.
What is your idea of a spiritual practice in these times? Many people are desperately seeking something, but it's hard to keep grounded and not resort to escaping reality.
Your spiritual practice should not take you away from reality, but should strengthen your ability to face reality. So a true spiritual practice should be very reality focused.
I like escaping.
I'm for the other way.
I like escaping, but I mean, it's good to have some sort of discipline that grounds you a bit. I like being a little dysregulated, as you can see. So maybe I'm not the best person to ask for this. Dance, that's good. Oh wait, headphones coming up. Do you ever have thoughts on getting annoyed with small talk with loved ones or repetitive conversations? How do you tell them it feels shallow?
I wouldn't. I would appreciate the context and the intent. They're trying to connect with you. Some people just talk just so that they can like reach out psychically and make a connection with you. So permit and be kind. Appreciate the intent.
I think it's coming from who seems like a bit of a younger person. I really only started appreciating that type of conversation when I moved out and like was able to actually have a bit of distance between what you would say like family members or certain people that would just want to have shallow conversation. And then once I was able to like individuate and be far from it, I actually gained a new appreciation for small talk.
If you're young, let me clarify, I don't expect you to have much patience with having conversations about your uncle's new carpets that he just had laid down, because that's not for you. So
And to be fair, a lot of these members might just be looking at you just as an ear. So they might just be talking at you, you know. So it's just one of those growing pains you got to just sit through, man.
yeah, definitely. Xenophobia. What are your thoughts on the topic? If Xenons ever came to this planet, would you be phobic of them or would you embrace them?
Xenos. Are those the really hot ones? Or,
Some of them are right looking, yeah.
and then the other half are just like straight up like ogres.
Ogres with multiple arms, but the blue ones are all right.
Okay, I'll pick the ogres then.
Cool.
I'll get along with them, which is fine.
Testicle baguettes, clitoral French stick, labia brioche.
Do you think that we all have the do you think we have the propensity to be psychopathic depending on the situation we're in? Yeah, definitely. Everyone's become a psychopath nowadays. Everyone's lost a lot of empathy in the worst way. Like, people talk to each other without any type of humanity nowadays, dude. People are really becoming removed from their inner connection to each other. It's wild.
So once people have adopted the goal-orientated perspective of dog eat dog and get what's mine just for me by any means necessary, whilst they might not have the perfect childhood conditions that makes them a clinical psychopath, they're essentially functioning as a psychopath in the world. So yeah, the context can generate psychopathy. If there was a war and huge trauma and death around you, you would become very psychopathic for a period of time in order to survive the harsh environment you were in.
Breaking Bad, the show, is the exploration of an average person turning into a psychopath. So I remember watching the directors and the writers' intention with that, and they were just saying, like, we wanted to explore what it took for somebody to become a psychopath eventually. So there you go.
Well, that's interesting. Do you think them attacking manhood and making men more passive and less combative is the reason why the government are getting away with so much?
Oh, whoa, that's an interesting question, man. I mean, I don't know what the agenda is, but according to that question, it would be a reasonable line of logic, right? Like if men are becoming more passive and less combative, they're not going to challenge the government that much, right?
There's that, and then there's the I would, if I was had a tyrannical, nefarious agenda, I would also want to disrupt the relationships between men and women and make sure men and women felt like there was no support, that there was no love between them. And interpersonally between all humans, I try and make them competitive and selfish so that they couldn't really connect with each other, so that they saw their friends and neighbors as competitors and enemies rather than as friends and neighbors and allies, just to break the human spirit, I think. But yes, definitely it seems to be a case that the attack on manhood and masculinity would have the side effect of making the population more compliant.
We're getting one question about Patrice O'Neal for the last 30 minutes.
Yeah.
When it comes to stand-up comedy, I think a lot of these comedians, including him, are great to look at just because it's a release of anger. But just because you enjoy someone's stand-up doesn't mean you have to believe everything that they say. In the same way, if you watch a movie like The Godfather or Scarface, doesn't mean you enjoy murdering another gang and snorting 10 lines of coke.
But we do.
But we do it every day anyways.
Brap, brap, homies.
But there's a way to enjoy art that could be slightly edgy, inappropriate, or offensive without fully subscribing to that person's worldview.
I'd say Patrice O'Neal was the best stand-up comic of all time.
But women are more attracted more to masculine men. Well,
so if that is true, and I'm not saying it is, I wouldn't dare, then women would be frustrated, and that would be another component, more frustration and more sense of despair, like there's no good men around to even bother attaching to. Imagine the widespread effect across a population of 60 million or 330 million people.
If someone is presented with a single option or choice that makes the present better, but there's no way out but to take it, are they given their right choice to choose in a situation?
Wait. I think the answer is no. That's not a choice. A single option is not a choice. So did I get that right?
If someone is presented a single option that makes their present better, but with no way out but to take it, are they given their right to choose?
No. One choice is not a choice. One choice is a commandment or an injunction.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
So it's a good thing to remember in life generally. You need a multiplicity of options to consider yourself free and to have the luxury of something that we would consider to be choice, truly.
Do you think that a degree of detachment and impartiality is necessary? It seems like nothing can be talked about knee-jerk reaction shot matches. Yes! I will go with a full-fledged yes on that one. What about you?
I would say yes. It's always necessary. A degree of attachment and impartiality is always necessary at all times, but particularly now with the amount of content there is in the environment. It's a very content-dense environment. Content is like other people's ideas, prejudices, and opinions. So the temptation is to be hit with content and then to reply from the same level of consciousness that the level of consciousness attacked you with. That's just basic human nature. So you're like, oh, you have an opinion, I don't like it. Oof, let me fire an opinion back to neutralize it and to create balance again in the force. Actually creating balance again in the force probably would be some detachment and impartiality, and just say, like a good psychologist or a good Buddhist, I hear you, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I agree with it.
I'm glad you said Buddhist, because that's exactly the route that I'm taking. I'm seeing my approaches in a way that leans more towards the key essences of Buddhism, which is detachment, learning how to work with your reality through a detached lens, but not necessarily removing yourself completely. But the only way to maintain a clear form of mind is to detach yourself in a way that allows you to function correspondingly. Can't be too reactive. Take a step back. Right now in the most reactive world, perhaps the best way is just to detach yourself a little bit.
Definitely. I'm going to have to go soon.
I'm going to have to go take a pee-pee.
Should we answer one more question and then?
Have you had any long-term effects from space travel?
Sometimes it's hard to acclimatize to the coordinates of Earth after long-term space travel.
To be back with the humans is really heavy nowadays. That's why I'm kind of blasting off a bit and just staying in orbit for a while.
Thank you, DePam, for moderating today.
Thank you to our moderators here at
Tentacle Croissant.
Tentacle Croissant.
Reporting live from the flip ship, it's your
Semi-Flip Lord Pierre XO here with...
I am Richard Grannon. Yes, hello, indeed.
We will see you guys very soon. We have a lot of content. We filmed a lot today, and it will be released over the span of how many Earth times that you guys want. A few weeks or something like that. I'm sure you will enjoy it. In the meantime, stay detached, stay clear, stay conscious, my friends. Bitendo and e-scooter and goodbye.